Every night at 3:17, my TV turns on to a channel that doesn't exist. When I first moved into the apartment, I wasn't looking for anything fancy, just a place to reset, recharge, and maybe even forget a bit. It was an old building with creaky floors, drafty windows, and thin walls, but the rent was affordable, the neighborhood quiet, and it had this strange charm that appealed to me, like something out of a 70s noir film. Faded wallpaper, brass, doorknobs, and a hallway that always smelled faintly of burnt coffee and mothballs. I moved in on a Tuesday, lugging a mattress, a few boxes, and my ancient 42-inch TV that had survived 4 flats and 2 breakups. The place was peaceful enough for the first few days. No noisy neighbors, just the occasional dog barking in the distance or the upstairs tap running at odd hours. But that didn't bother me. I was just glad to have somewhere I could call, my own. Somewhere the silence felt earned. It wasn't until the third night that things shifted, subtly at first, like a hairline crack forming in glass. I remember waking up around 3:15 a.m., not from a sound, but from this presence. You know that feeling you get when someone's staring at you even though your eyes are closed? That deep, uncomfortable awareness that makes your skin crawl before your mind even registers danger? That was exactly it. I sat up in bed and squinted toward the living room, only to see a faint flickering glow. I could have sworn I'd unplugged everything before bed. I always did. A force of habit, mostly to save on the electric bill and because, well, I don't trust old wiring. But there it was. My TV, switched on by itself, humming softly, casting pale light across the cracked laminate floor. What immediately struck me as odd wasn't just that it was on, but what it was showing. Not a regular channel, not static, but what looked like an old security camera feed. At first, I thought it was a glitch or maybe some leftover image from a smart TV function, though mine wasn't smart. But then I noticed the scene on the screen. A hallway, dimly lit, grainy like analog CCTV, with walls painted in a greenish gray that matched nothing I'd ever seen before. There was no sound, only a faint background hiss like old VHS tapes, and the image seemed to gently sway as if the camera was breathing. I picked up the remote, pressed the power button, nothing. Tried changing the channel, still nothing. I even tried pulling out the batteries and replacing them, thinking maybe it was stuck. Still, the image remained. That hallway, unmoving, yet somehow pulsing with something that felt alive. It wasn't just a hallway, it felt like it was watching me back.
Eventually, with a weird pit in my stomach, I walked over to the TV, crouched, and tried using the physical power button. No response. I held it down for several seconds. Still nothing. It was like the set had overridden its own controls. I unplugged it from the wall.
Finally, the screen went black and the room was swallowed by silence again. I remember sitting there for a moment in the dark, holding the plug in my hand, heart pounding in my ears. Maybe it was just a leftover signal, a weird broadcast interference. There's always some mundane explanation for things like this, right? I told myself I'd look it up in the morning and chalked it up to lack of sleep or stress from the move or both. But that night I couldn't shake the unease. It sat heavy on my chest like something left unresolved, a question hanging in the air. Why that hallway? Why that image? I didn't even fall asleep again. Just laid on the mattress in my clothes, eyes fixed on the now dark screen, waiting for morning. When daylight finally seeped through the slatted blinds, everything seemed back to normal. No flickering, no noise. The TV stayed off. Still, I checked the settings, the input sources. Everything was blank. No signal history, no scheduled timers. I even reset it to factory settings just to be sure. Later that day, I told a coworker about it, making it sound like a joke. Guess my new flat's haunted, I laughed, but he just shrugged and said, maybe someone nearby is using a signal jammer, or your remote's synced with a neighbor's. Fair point, I thought, until I remembered my TV didn't have any wireless functions. No Bluetooth, no Wi-Fi, not even a working aerial. It was just a basic plug-and-play screen, barely hanging on after years of overuse. Still, I tried to let it go. But something about that hallway wouldn't leave my mind. I couldn't place it, but it felt eerily familiar, like a place from a half-remembered dream. I spent hours scrolling through old buildings online, Googling abandoned hotels, derelict hospitals, anything that might match it. Nothing came close. That night, I made a point to unplug the TV and even moved it slightly so I'd be sure to notice if it came on again. Then I set an alarm for 3:10 just in case. I drifted off just before midnight, phone by my side, feeling oddly proud of my preparation. But when the alarm buzzed, I woke not to silence, but to the low hum of electricity already in the room. The TV was on again. The exact same hallway. Same grainy lighting. But something was different. Hard to explain, but the camera angle had shifted. It was closer to something. The image wasn't just a static feed anymore. It had moved. Or been moved. I didn't even try the remote this time. I just stood there, frozen. Eyes locked on the screen, every hair on my body standing on end, like static was crawling up my spine. The hallway seemed longer now, deeper, like it had stretched. I reached for my phone to record it, but the moment I opened the camera app, the screen glitched and went black. That's when I noticed the time on the microwave, 3:18 a.m. The moment the minute changed, the screen went dark on its own. I didn't unplug it. I didn't touch a thing. It just shut off. That's when I knew something was wrong. Deeply, profoundly wrong. By the following evening, any hope I had of brushing this off as a wiring issue or some harmless interference had evaporated. I was too disturbed, too curious, and honestly, too sleep-deprived to let it go. I didn't leave the apartment that day, couldn't really focus on anything else. Work emails went unanswered, dishes piled up in the sink, and the coffee pot worked overtime as I kept circling back to the same question. Where was the feed coming from? More importantly, why me? I inspected the TV thoroughly, checked the back panel for hidden devices, looked for strange wiring, opened the settings again, even tried Googling the model number to see if others had reported anything similar. Nothing. No forums, no complaints, no haunted TV Reddit threads, not even the usual YouTube conspiracy videos. It was like this thing had skipped right past the internet. Around 8 p.m. I decided to set up a proper recording. I placed my phone on a tripod facing the TV, hit record and left it there for the night. Unplugged the TV first, of course. I didn't want to wake up to it on again without proof. I figured if something strange happened, at least I'd have a video to analyze. Maybe show someone credible. I even left a notebook next to the bed to jot down anything I noticed. But when I woke up the next morning and checked the footage, 8 solid hours of it, there was nothing. Just darkness. Not even ambient light. It was as if the camera had recorded the inside of a coffin. The timestamp rolled on normally, but there were no changes in lighting, no flickers, not even the red standby dot on the TV. Confused, I checked the battery. It had held charge all night. Memory card intact. The app didn't crash. It was as though the moment I pressed record, something reached through the screen and smothered the lens. That should have been my cue to pack a bag and find a hotel for a few nights. Instead, I found myself dragging the tripod back out and setting it up again, determined to catch something. Anything. Because now I wasn't just scared, I was angry. I felt mocked. So I changed tactics. I decided to stay awake and film it, manually. That night I made strong coffee, turned off all the lights, sat in the armchair facing the TV, phone in hand, thumb over the record button. As the hours ticked by, I almost convinced myself nothing would happen. Midnight came and went. Then 1 a.m., 2:15. I kept checking the time like someone counting down to a heart attack. Then, exactly at 3:17, the TV clicked. It was louder than before, like a door slamming in a library. The screen lit up again and I hit record instantly. There it was, the hallway, clearer now, sharper almost. I could make out more detail. Flickering fluorescent bulbs above, a patterned linoleum, floor stains on the walls like water damage or worse. But what really turned my stomach was the movement. It was slow, almost imperceptible, but the camera on the feed was gliding forward, inch by inch. The feed wasn't static at all. It was live. Something, or someone, was moving it closer. I watched unblinking as the hallway seemed to stretch and darken the further it went, like it was swallowing light. The sounds were louder, too. Not voices exactly, but movement. A soft dragging, a distant creak, and something like slow, deliberate breathing as if the camera, or whatever was holding it, was alive. I whispered to myself, "What the hell is this?" And to my shock, the audio on my phone picked up a faint echo from the TV, mimicking my words just a second behind. Not a playback, an echo like the hallway had heard me. I paused the recording, trying to calm myself, when the image on the screen shifted suddenly. The hallway turned. The camera, if that's what it was, rounded a corner to the right and showed a new section. Darker, more narrow, ending in a door. A red door. Faded, warped, old. On the front, written in peeling white letters, was a number. 3B. My flat number. I felt the air leave my lungs in one sharp exhale, like someone had punched me in the chest. I stood, hands trembling, and stared at the screen, in disbelief. There was no way. I stumbled back to my door, opened it, and checked the hallway outside. Empty. Silent. Just the dim nightlight glowing by the stairwell and the usual creak of the settling building. No camera, no footsteps, no red door. But when I stepped back inside, heart racing, the TV now showed nothing, just static. I checked my phone. The recording was gone. It had saved to my camera roll, but it was just black again like before. I felt my sanity beginning to bend at the edges, like paper curling in fire. I sat down, tried to call a friend. Line disconnected. I called another, straight to voicemail. Even my Wi-Fi showed no connection, though the router blinked like it was working fine. I restarted my phone. Same issue. Only when I unplugged the TV again did everything snap back. Suddenly the phone had reception, Wi-Fi bars reappeared, missed call alerts popped up. It was as if the screen had been sucking everything in. Light, sound, signal. That night, I didn't sleep. Couldn't. I just sat in the dark, TV unplugged, waiting. The hallway, the red door, the echo, and it all felt too real, like some part of me had been touched by something I didn't understand. And worst of all, I realized something I hadn't noticed before. When I'd plugged the TV in that first night, there was no outlet behind it. No socket, no power strip. It had just turned on its own, as if it had always been on, waiting for someone to look. I didn't leave the apartment the next day, not out of laziness or illness, but because I didn't want to miss anything. I couldn't. It had gone far beyond curiosity now. This was obsession, the kind that eats you from the inside while convincing you you're still in control. I kept telling myself that all I needed was one good recording, one piece of irrefutable evidence to prove that I wasn't losing my mind. But deep down, I knew it wasn't about proof anymore. It was about understanding, about getting answers from something that didn't want to be understood. I spent the morning double-checking every inch of the flat for hidden devices, projectors, wires, anything that might explain how my TV, an old basic model from 2010 with no smart features and no internet connection, was displaying what appeared to be a live shifting hallway that bore an uncanny resemblance to my building. I even called the manufacturer's support line, pretending I had a signal bleed issue, just to hear them say what I already knew. That model can't stream anything. It has no receiver or software interface. If it's showing a feed, something external is feeding it, but nothing was connected. HDMI ports were empty. Aerial cable, disconnected since day one. And still, each night at 3:17, the same scene would unfold like clockwork. Only now, it was evolving. Night 8 changed everything. That evening, I prepared differently. I taped my phone to my chest, lens facing forward, recording continuously from midnight. I plugged the TV in around 2:30 and just waited. No lights on, no distractions, just me and the screen. When it blinked on at 3:17 sharp, I didn't flinch. I was ready. Or so I thought. The hallway appeared as usual, except this time, it was brighter, too bright. The walls were almost gray-white with harsh overhead lights that flickered erratically, casting long, unnatural shadows. The door at the end, the red one marked 3B, was now wide open. The camera didn't move forward anymore. It was already inside. The angle showed a small room, almost empty, with peeling wallpaper and one object in the middle, a chair, and someone sitting in it. Or something. I couldn't make out the details. Just a tall, skeletal figure, hunched forward, elbows on knees, its head slowly turning toward the screen. Toward me. My hands went cold. I could feel a film of sweat on my skin, like my body was trying to reject the moment itself. Then it began to move, slowly rising from the chair, standing to its full, grotesque height. It wasn't right. Its limbs bent the wrong way, too many joints, as if a person had been put together by someone who'd only seen a human once. The feed crackled, distorted, but only visually. The sound was clear, and what I heard made my blood run ice. Breathing. Wet, ragged breathing, like lungs filled with water. It stepped forward, and so did the camera. But I wasn't touching anything. My remote sat on the table, batteries out. I stood frozen as the screen filled with that thing, step by slow step, drawing closer, and then its face. Or lack of one. It had a head, yes. But it was as if someone had smoothed over every feature with wax. No eyes. No nose. Just a slit, where the mouth should be. Thin, trembling, and constantly twitching like it was trying to form a word it didn't know. Then, for the first time, it spoke. Not in a voice, but in text. Bold red letters appeared on the screen, as if typed across. The feed in real time let me out. I stumbled backward, knocking over the coffee table, and still the screen didn't flicker. It was locked in. I yanked the plug out of the wall. No change. The image stayed. I turned to run to the door, but it wouldn't open. Not jammed. Gone. There was no door behind me. Just more wall. I was trapped in the room, and the air grew heavier by the second, like breathing underwater. I turned back to the TV, heart hammering so hard I felt dizzy, and the image had changed. It was no longer the creature's face. It was mine. Me. On the screen. Standing in the same room facing the TV, just like I was in real life. But the reflection was wrong. My image blinked. I didn't. It turned its head. I didn't move. The fake version of me smiled, a slow, unnatural curl of the mouth that didn't belong on my face. Then, the fake me in the feed raised its hand and waved mockingly, like a reflection that had grown tired of pretending to be me. The realization hit me like a wave of ice. The camera feed wasn't just looking at the hallway anymore. It was looking at me from somewhere else. Somewhere it shouldn't be. I rushed to the breaker box and flipped every switch, plunging the flat into darkness. Finally, the screen died. I stayed there, breathing hard in the pitch black, for what felt like an hour. When I turned the power back on, the TV remained off. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the floor, all the lights on, watching the dead screen like it might blink to life at any second. When the sun came up, I looked down at my chest to retrieve the phone I'd taped. There, and it was gone, cleanly peeled off, tape still stuck to my shirt. The phone was nowhere to be found. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me anyway? My TV shows me a ghost hallway, and I think something in it stole my phone. Even I wouldn't buy that if I heard it from someone else. But silence didn't mean peace. The next 2 nights passed in this surreal kind of purgatory. I unplugged the TV, removed the cord entirely, locked it in the hallway cupboard, and still, every night at exactly 3:17 a.m., I'd wake up. Not to static, not to sound. Just to the feeling, an overwhelming sensation that something was in the flat with me. Even if nothing moved, nothing made a noise. It was like the air became thick at that hour, like every molecule in the room paused to listen to a sound only. I couldn't hear. I slept with the lights on, a knife under my pillow, and my bedroom door bolted, but even then, I'd wake up sweating, certain I'd heard the faint click of the TV power button from across the flat, except it wasn't even plugged in. By night 11, I hit a breaking point. I went to a hotel. Nothing fancy, just a grimy roadside place with buzzing fluorescents and curtains that barely met in the middle. But I didn't care. All I needed was one night. One single, undisturbed night where no screen would flicker to life and show me my own death in slow motion. I fell asleep by 11 p.m., exhausted beyond reason, and for the first time in over a week I slept through 3:17. I should have felt relieved. I should have celebrated. But when I checked my email the next morning, on a completely new phone I'd bought the day before, there was a video message. No subject. No sender. The file was simply named, "Watch Me." I stared at the screen, knowing exactly what it was before I hit play. The footage was shaky at first, as if recorded from something handheld. But then it focused. It was me, in the hotel bed, sleeping. The camera angle slowly crept forward, the shot low, waist height, like something crawling on all fours. I watched, paralyzed, as the camera came right up to the side of my bed, tilted slightly, and paused on my face. Just watching, my chest rising and falling. Then, from behind the lens, a breath, wet, shallow, familiar. Then the frame went black. No movement, just the timestamp ticking on until the video ended at 3:17 a.m. That was when I realized it didn't need the TV anymore. It had followed me. It had learned me. I threw the phone at the wall, grabbed my stuff, and checked out without even showering. I took a cab straight to my childhood home, 4 towns away. My parents live in the countryside, no neighbors for miles, and I figured if anything could shield me from whatever this was, it would be distance, isolation, somewhere without a signal. But on my first night back, as I tried to sleep in my old bedroom, I noticed the alarm clock on my nightstand. It blinked, 3:17, then it froze. The seconds stopped ticking. At first I thought it had simply malfunctioned. Power surge maybe, but then I heard it again. That breath. That horrible, hollow rasp like lungs scraping against damp concrete. Not from outside the door, not from the hallway, from inside the walls. I pressed my ear to the plaster, too terrified to move. Nothing. Then from the other side, a whisper. "I see you." My knees buckled. I backed away, collapsed into the chair in the corner, staring at the wall like it might crack open and reveal something I could never unsee. I stayed like that until the sun came up, unmoving, while the clock stayed frozen at 3:17 for 6 full hours. And when I looked at the digital screen again, just before dawn, it flickered once and resumed like nothing had happened. My parents told me I looked pale, thin, haunted. I said it was work stress. But how could I explain the truth? That a nameless entity with no face and no voice had somehow used my TV as a window, then as a doorway. And now, it didn't need either. It had gotten in. Into my flat, into my sleep, into my tech. It knew my name, my habits, my friends, my face. I destroyed the television, of course. Smashed it with a sledgehammer and buried the pieces in a locked trunk 10 miles outside the city. I changed phones again, wiped all my cloud data, disconnected every smart device I owned. But I know it's not enough. Because this isn't just a haunting, it's a migration. It's something that learns, adapts, spreads. And I fear, the longer I keep trying to outrun it, the more it spreads behind me. Last night I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. No subject, no message. Just an attachment, a photo, a black screen, my old TV, sitting in a room I didn't recognize. But on the screen, something was moving toward the glass. Not a hallway, not a chair, a mirror, and in it a face that looked just like mine, only grinning. I haven't opened my laptop since.